Almost everything that's happening in the United States government right now is unconstitutional and illegal. I've been hearing a lot of people wondering why nothing can be done if all of these things are illegal, all of these people are breaking law. Well, there's something very important to remember. People like Donald Trump and Elon Musk don't believe in the rule of law, and they certainly don't believe the law applies to them. Let's dive in. Good evening and welcome to tonight's episode of Mary Trump Live. It is day 16 of the worst constitutional crisis perhaps in American history. And the crisis is rapidly expanding every day. Thank you so much for being here. It's another one of those days. Hopefully I'm going to be able to get to your comments today. I think we solved that problem. But first, let's enjoy a little bit of the what I'm calling just the wholesale abdication of the Republican Party, and just see yet another of the myriad examples of how easy it is for these people, these fascist Republicans, to repeat the most insane and quite frankly embarrassing talking points, taking their cues from Donald Trump. Take a look.
Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results.
The definition of insanity is attempting to do the same thing over and over and over again. And as the President and Prime Minister pointed out last night,
as our defense secretary said famously today, Pete Hegseth, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again.
President Trump is an outside-of-the-box thinker and a visionary leader who solves problems that many others, especially in this city, claim are unsolvable.
The President is willing to think outside the box.
We might as well look at one of the world's longest problems and bring in a leader who thinks outside the box, who's crazy, may just be crazy genius.
Okay, come on. That is a bridge too far even for you guys. Let's start with the first point. I am a clinical psychologist. I can say with some authority, that is not the definition of insanity. Also, by the way, insanity is a legal term, not a psychological one. So good job so far. Yeah, a leader who will think outside the box, whatever. They, obviously they're all getting the memo. This is what they are good at, and this is what Democrats need to be better at. Getting the message, staying on message. The difference is, of course, Democrats hopefully aren't going to lie so egregiously and aren't going to support a man whose brain continues to melt out of his ears. What would have been really fascinating to include in the memo, all those Republicans in the media and in the administration seem to get, was the fact that Donald was announcing that he was going to take over Gaza. It's now being revealed that the only person Donald may have consulted on this massive and quite frankly terrifying decision was himself. I know from personal experience that this is ill-advised. Never get your advice from Donald. Anyway, his plan, which appears to have existed only in his head, was never reviewed. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, who I have to say is putting all of the other previous press secretaries from the first Trump administration to shame. I mean, she's got it all. Just a fluency with mendacity that is kind of admirable in a creepy way. Smugness and condescension, ignorance and contempt. Wow. So it is really quite impressive. So she confirmed that the plan was first formalized when Donald read it aloud, meaning it was never vetted by the National Security Council, the State Department, or the Pentagon. Check out this clip.
Also said that everyone loves this plan. He said that in the Oval Office this morning. Sure. In fact, the Deputy Prime Minister of Jordan called it a declaration of war on the Arab people. So how does he square the fact that even some Republicans on the Hill are objecting to this or questioning this? How does he square the fact saying everyone loves this plan?
Well, King Abdullah of Jordan will be here next week, so I can provide you more context on the conversations he will have directly with the President of the United States after that meeting. And I would just point out that there's been a lot of leaders and officials all around the world who have doubted, I suppose, the deal-making ability of President Trump. You heard the Panama leader saying that he would not agree to some of the concessions that he has now made because of Secretary Rubio's visit. You had the Colombian president saying he wouldn't accept flights of Colombian illegal nationals who have entered into our country illegally, and those flights are underway. So actions speak louder than words.
Yeah, well, they actually do. Just not the ones you're thinking about. Her saying that, her saying it was formalized as soon as he said it out loud, it sort of reminds me of when he said that he could declassify documents with his mind. Very similar. Thankfully, we have another clip from Leave It.
The president has spent basically his entire public career criticizing foreign entanglements, nation building, sending American troops to fight abroad, particularly in the Middle East. This plan seems like it could ultimately involve all of those things. Can you explain this reversal and how building and owning Gaza squares with America First foreign policy?
I would reject the premise of your question that this forces the United States to be entangled in conflicts abroad. The president has not committed to putting boots on the ground in Gaza. He has also said that the United States is not going to pay for the rebuilding of Gaza. His administration is going to work with our partners in the region to reconstruct this region. And let me just take a step back here, because this is an out-of-the-box idea. That's who President Trump is. That's why the American people elected him. And his goal is lasting peace in the Middle East for all people in the region.
Okay. He's not an out-of-the-box thinker. He's a very old man who has all sorts of psychiatric and potentially neurological and psychological problems. He does not know what he's talking about, pretty much ever. And the idea that people are taking their cue from him on such a massive scale is quite alarming. Also, for those of you who like to evade questions, a really good way to do that is to reject the premise of the person's question. Secretary of State Marco Rubio learned about all of this, are basically hostilely taking over Gaza and relocating all of the Romanian Palestinians for, I don't know, a couple of decades. He learned about it on TV. He was traveling in Guatemala and only heard about the plan by watching Donald's press conference, despite being the United States, well, ostensibly top diplomat. And the only thing that should probably take the sting out of that a little bit for little Marco is the fact that this regime does not believe in diplomacy, so his job isn't really that important anyway. GOP lawmakers had no prior warning, and Republican lawmakers on the Senate Armed Services Committee, who had recently discussed Gaza with Donald, were never informed of the takeover plan. Because again, I'm pretty sure even Donald didn't inform himself that he was going to say anything about this plan until he said it. One senior aide actually said, not a word of this was ever mentioned by Donald. Get used to it, guys. Donald's Middle East envoy only described Gaza's destruction to him. Steve Witkoff's grim assessment of Gaza reportedly influenced Donald, but he never suggested a U.S. takeover. He arrived at that idea himself. Yes, somebody telling him about the horrors in Gaza influenced him into thinking he could take advantage of other people's pain and suffering. Catch up. Of course, the cabinet was blindsided. Everybody is going to be blindsided in perpetuity. His Middle East, national security, and diplomatic teams were left scrambling to craft a rationale for a policy they had no prior knowledge of, and quite honestly, has no rationale. I mean, that you should say out loud anyway. Netanyahu may not have known the full extent of what Donald was going to say, which I say serves him right. Donald's advisors briefed Netanyahu the night before, but it's unclear if Donald would publicly propose U.S. control over Gaza. His smile during the announcement suggests he was pleased because he's a monster, but possibly surprised. This is a pattern of impulsive policymaking that reinforces Donald's history of announcing major foreign policy shifts on the fly, forcing his administration retroactively to justify and explain them after the fact. So today, Pete Hegseth received Netanyahu at the Pentagon. While the two did not take questions, Hegseth had something inappropriate to say to Netanyahu. Let's hope he was sober. Take a look at this clip.
We've supplied munitions that were previously not supplied, that are useful in eradicating radical enemies, and we are committed to continuing to do so.
Yeah, it's inappropriate to us. Representative McGovern put this into context, and let's see what he had to say.
And look, the agenda we're talking about, I mean, I'm looking at the New York Times here. Trump proposing takeover of Gaza as U.S. territory. I mean, do your constituents want to have their sons or daughters sent to Gaza to be in the middle of that violence? This is the guy who also now wants to invade Greenland. He wants to take over Panama. He wants to annex Canada. He wants to now occupy Gaza. I mean, we have 42 million people in this country who are hungry. Whatever happened to America First? Whatever happened to helping people in this country? Whatever happened to lowering prices? And instead we get this. This is like a warmonger here. I mean, come on.
Is he from Massachusetts by any chance? Just curious. Yes, like a warmonger. He is a warmonger. And I just want to clarify something. When Hegseth was saying that something was inappropriate, he was talking about Donald's idea ethnically to cleanse Gaza of Palestinians. I think that's inappropriate, and I think that may be the understatement of the last geological epoch. All right, there was a response, by many people, but this is Saudi Arabia. After the press conference with Netanyahu, Saudi officials stated they will not normalize relations with Israel unless a Palestinian state is established, directly contradicting Donald's claim that Riyadh had dropped this demand. Riyadh quickly reaffirmed its stance, signaling opposition to Donald's plan and maintaining its long-standing condition for Israeli ties. Donald's comments could undermine efforts to expand the Abraham Accords, which Biden had been working to advance with Saudi-Israeli normalization. The proposal fuels concerns about U.S. involvement in Middle East conflicts and risks further alienating Palestinian leaders and Arab nations. We posted a video about this earlier today, all of the events that have come out about this issue. So please check that out because I do believe you will find it interesting and horrifying and upsetting. But that's because we're in day 16 of the worst constitutional crisis in American history. All right. The infamous and egregious Tulsi Gabbard's nomination was revived with the help of Senator Tom Cotton, Republican of Arkansas, and an unexpected ally. I mean, clearly Cotton is going to vote for her. That I think that goes without saying. But can you believe that a former Democratic senator, well, actually, she was an independent, but a former senator, not a Republican, became an ally for Tulsi Gabbard and her desires to get confirmed as Director of National Intelligence. Who could that possibly be? Yes. One of the worst Democratic/independent senators in history, Kyrsten Sinema. And I would argue she's worse than Joe Manchin, because Joe Manchin has always been Joe Manchin. Kyrsten Sinema actually fooled a lot of people into thinking that she cared. Cotton worked all angles involving Vice President J.D. Vance. Remember him? One of Donald's advisors, Jason Miller, former NSA advisor Robert O'Brien, to push support, especially among undecided senators, because, again, she's an incredibly dangerous pick, and even some Republicans probably have, doubts. Republicans were frustrated during Gabbard's hearing, particularly over her refusal to call Edward Snowden a traitor. But she still secured a party line recommendation from the Senate Intel Committee, which does not bode well. Cotton turned the Senate Republican Conference into a war room for Gabbard, assisting with questionnaires, hearing prep, and even pushing a favorable Newsweek op-ed. Meghan McCain, is threatening senators. Wait, let me start over. Meghan, my father is John McCain. McCain is threatening senators who will not vote to confirm Tulsi Gabbard. I apologize in advance, but take a look at this.
If anyone votes against her, I promise you, I will do anything in my power to make sure there are consequences for this, or RFK for that matter, because this is it's about more than just Tulsi and RFK. This is about the new coalition in the Republican Party, and particularly women and moms who came out in droves, a lot of first-time Trump voters who came out and voted because they wanted this, squad of people. They wanted the dream team, which includes RFK and Tulsi Gabbard, and they deserve to have their choices in the cabinet. It is not up to just these people, and you can't give me a real reason you don't like Tulsi, other than you've listened to some propaganda on the internet, and I'm heartbroken by it, but I do think we're going to get her over the line. And if for some reason we don't, I promise you there will be hell to pay, and I hope that you will join me in getting retribution for it.
I will join you in launching primaries against these people.
What power? Seriously? Okay. And also, heartbroken. Tulsi Gabbard is a Russian asset. This is well documented. She is time and time again cited with the most vicious, brutal, murderous dictators in the world, including, I always get his name mixed up, I apologize, Bashar al-Assad of Syria, who on purpose killed hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of his own people. Also, what is she so invested in Tulsi Gabbard for? And I think what she's gonna cross her arms and blink if people don't vote for her. I do not know, but she's an absurd person. I have a story about her I'm gonna tell you someday. But we have a lot to get to. Sadly, and not unexpectedly, Pam Bondi was sworn in today as the United States Attorney General, which is a sentence that should curl your hair. She was confirmed 54 to 46 with John Fetterman, who seems to be well on his way to becoming the next Joe Manchin or Kyrsten Sinema, breaking ranks to support her. Keep an eye on that guy. Democrats raised concerns about her potential loyalty to Donald. I really wish people would stop couching things in phrases like that. She is completely loyal to Donald and will do whatever he tells her to do. Donald said during Bondi's swearing-in ceremony earlier today this: I know I'm supposed to say she's going to be totally impartial with respect to Democrats, and I think she will be as impartial as a person can be. I'm going to translate for those of you who aren't quite fluent yet. It won't take long. She's going to be totally partial to Donald. She is going to treat Democrats unfairly, and she's going to abuse her powers as the Attorney General of the United States to go after Donald's perceived enemies. Former Florida Attorney General, Pam Bondi was the former Attorney General of Florida, which I guess, on paper makes her kind of qualified. and that's probably the rationale Fetterman used. But she dodged questions during her confirmation hearing about whether she would appoint a special counsel if Donald faced legal issues, which understandably raised fears that she may shield him from accountability. But honestly, there isn't going to be any anyway, so she's off the hook there. Shortly after her confirmation, the Justice Department fired or reassigned multiple career staff, including a dozen prosecutors from Jack Smith's team, who had indicted Donald in 2023. Republicans claimed the DOJ needed to be, quote unquote, depoliticized after Donald's 2023 indictments, despite his history of demanding investigations into political enemies like Biden. I mean, I don't disagree that the Justice Department needed to be depoliticized. That is the Justice Department under Merrick Garland, which went after Hunter Biden and totally failed to go after Donald Trump adequately. But I just meant be fair and value the rule of law again. There also, of course, is a CIA purge. The CIA offered, I don't know if buyouts is the right word, but let's just use it as a placeholder, to its entire workforce. This way, they aim to align the agency with Donald's national security priorities under new CIA director John Ratcliffe. A CIA spokesperson framed the move as a strategy to ensure responsiveness to the administration, though specifics on the number of employees or budget details remain undisclosed. The buyouts reflect a broader effort on the new regime's part to reshape the federal government, which has included mass firings and sidelining of career civil servants. It's a really great way to reshape a federal government. I mean, destroying it totally, that's one way. But one step towards that goal would be to get rid of an entire agency with centuries worth of institutional knowledge. It's a good start. The White House recently extended offers to 2 million federal workers, providing pay and benefits through September 30th in order to encourage voluntary departures. Early on the same day, unions representing federal employees filed a lawsuit to block the administration's plan, signaling pushback against the widespread restructuring. And that, of course, is the kind of thing that we need to see more of. Drown them in paperwork. Just drag them into court and keep them there as long as humanly possible. So, look, all of this is of a piece. Cuts everywhere. Cuts based on, the bigotry of the guy ostensibly in charge, which is to say Donald, who's honestly not really in charge of anything. Following his executive order targeting diversity, equity, inclusion programs, West Point, which trains Army officers, disbanded 12 clubs, including groups promoting cultural heritage and support for marginalized communities. Yesterday, on February 4th, on Twitter, a memo from the Department of Army was leaked, and the memo stated, quote, "The purpose of the memorandum is to direct changes in accordance with recent presidential executive orders, Department of Defense guidelines, and Department of Army guidance. Effective immediately, all sanctioned clubs, all DCA clubs listed below are hereby disbanded. This directive cancels all trip sections, meetings, and events. Moreover, these clubs are not authorized to continue informal activities using government time, resources, or facilities." Here's a list of these just very toxic and dangerous clubs that are being disbanded. The Asian Pacific Forum Club, Contemporary Cultural Affairs Seminar Club, Corbin Forum, Japanese Forum, Korean American Relations Seminar, Latin Cultural Club, National Society of Black Engineers Club, that's a scary group, Native American Heritage Forum, Society for Hispanic and Heritage Engineers, Society of Women Engineers, STEM, run away, Spectrum, and the Vietnamese American Cadet Association. There's something that these things kind of have in common. Help me out. Help me out. Yeah. Nothing about white guys. These clubs were once integral to leadership development. How, say you? Because they helped cadets become well-rounded leaders who actually give a shit about people who were different from them. Just something you would think you would want in a leader, except this is America, and that is no longer the case. The removal of these clubs is seen as an attempt to comply with Donald's executive orders and Department of Defense guidance, sure. But, I think I'm not sure what the word of the week is. I think it could always be insane, but it could also be this week. It could be backlash, which is good. Like that, I want backlash to be the word of the week every week, because obviously the ban has spurred a lot of backlash, with critics arguing it discriminates against non-white groups and affects cadets' morale. Some believe it might hurt future enrollment and recruitment, especially among diverse applicants, and I would say that those people are correct. Nights Out, with a K, an LGBTQ group of West Point graduates expressed solidarity with queer cadets, opposing policies that harm LGBTQ plus service members, and they vowed to continue advocating for inclusion despite the changes. Yeah, listen, this is the point, right? The leaders are educated at places like West Point and the Air Force Academy, etc., the Naval Academy. So what are they trying to do? All leadership in the Army is just going to be white guys now. And how is that going to make life better or worse for enlisted people who are more likely than not going to be people of color, women, people from lower income brackets? It is not going to go well for them, because the people leading them are going to be a bunch of racist, misogynistic bigots who actually think that only white men deserve any rights or power. Donald has, again, he loves signing his name. I signed another executive order banning trans people from women's sports. Yeah, it's called, this is clever, keeping men out of women's sports. That this bans transgender athletes from competing in women's sports, which marks the latest in a series of actions aimed at reversing rights for transgender individuals. The order imposes stricter guidelines on sports and gender policies, instructing federal agencies, including the Department of Justice, to interpret federal Title IX regulations as prohibiting transgender girls and women from participating in female sports. Donald stated, with this executive order, the war on women's sports is over. Well, there was no war on women's sports. That was yet another fiction spun by the right. But there has been, for a very long time now, a war on both women and transgender women. I think it's important to remind ourselves that transgender women are among the most vulnerable people in our society. And that just got much, much worse. Before the signing, he rambled on about building a $100 million ballroom at the White House because that'll make everything better.
I offered to build a ballroom. I'm very good at building ballrooms. I build beautiful ballrooms. And I actually offered to build a ballroom for the White House. I was going to build it right there. This was going to be the reception room. And then I was going to build a beautiful, beautiful ballroom like I have at Mar-a-Lago, as beautiful as it can be. It was going to cost about $100 million. I offered to do it, and I never heard back. I offered to do it to the Biden administration, very active administration. So I'm going to try and make the offer to myself, because we could use a bigger room. Right, Marshall? We could use a bigger room.
That'll keep the little ladies happy. Let's give them a ballroom. By the way, been to Mar-a-Lago? It's hideous. He obviously felt encouraged by the forced laughter because he kept going and said this.
And, I'm not allowed to say this politically. It could end my career. They're really beautiful people. These are beautiful people. But like everything else, it's a little bit different today. You're not allowed to say that, because if you call a woman or a girl beautiful, that's the end of your career. But let's take a chance on it, Mike. Let's take a chance.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's slap their asses. Let's comment on their weight. Let's start calling them sweetie pie and whistling at them. What's the harm? Grow up, you little women. Can't take a joke, can't take a compliment. What the fuck is wrong with you, bitch? By the way, that's a word I never say. So I said it pointedly. He also talked about his strict two-gender policy, which I'm sure made a lot of people's days and made a lot of the rest of us feel pretty heartbroken.
But the actions we're taking today are the latest in a sweeping effort to reclaim our culture and our laws from the radical left crusade against biological reality. On day one, I made it official, and I'm making it official policy of the United States government that there is, two genders. We have two genders. What might they be? Man and woman, right?
Wow, there are children in that audience. Just makes it so much worse. What if the kids in that audience struggle with that one of these days? Yeah, this is bad. Essentially, what he just did right there was erase a not insignificant percentage of people in this country, or at least their right to define themselves the way they choose to or need to, as if he knows anything about any of this. Yeah, that's what hate does to somebody. That is what happens, or that is what it looks like when you take Dorian Gray's portrait out of the attic. So this order reverses Biden-era Title IX protections, which bar trans students from girls' sports and restrooms. The Education Department will investigate violations because that is the most vital use of our taxpayer dollars. Just as an aside, anybody who voted for this shit, forget it. The order affects U.S. visa policies, also targeting athletes who claim a female identity to compete in women's sports. Figures like Representative Nancy Grace and Riley Gaines praised the move. Of course they did, framing it as a defense of women's sports. This morning, this vapid, horrid creature had to offend the entire nation while Senator Connolly was speaking about the inappropriateness of using a slur to describe a community that is harmed by said slur. This is a trigger warning here. I don't typically do that because, I think we need to inure ourselves to a lot of this, but this is so offensive. She is so vile that, one, I want to let you know that it's going to be awful what you're about to see and hear. And two, we did bleep out the offensive slur because I don't want to be associated with it, and neither does anybody else here. So let's watch this clip.
So to each of you this morning, does this advance the interests of American citizens paying for trans in Guatemala to the tune of $2 million? Yes or no?
The gentlelady has used a phrase that is considered a slur in the LGBTQ community and the transgender community. And let me please finish without interruption. And
I don't really care. You want penises in women's bathrooms, and I'm not going to have it.
Okay.
No, thank you.
Let
disgusting.
Let the gentleman state his parliamentary inquiry.
to me, a slur is a slur. And here in the committee, a level of decorum requires us to try consciously to avoid slurs. You just heard the gentlelady actually actively, robustly repeat it. And I would just ask the chairman that she be counseled that we ought not to be engaged. We can have debate and policy discussion without offending human beings who are fellow citizens.
Chairman, I'm not going to be counseled by a man over men and women's spaces or men who have mental health issues dressing as women. I'm not being counseled by some guy.
My inquiry is to the
over
chairman,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Order.
Can somebody put her on a 72-hour psych hold? I mean, I don't want to give her the benefit of the doubt. She's just the most despicable of despicable people. I think there's a better way to go about this, though, than mildly remonstrating with the gentle lady. Just as a reminder, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez also ran to be ranking member of that committee, and Representative Connolly was chosen instead. So good for him, I guess. But I just like to imagine what it would have looked like if Ocasio-Cortez had been in a position to respond to that deeply harmful vitriol spewed by that grotesque human being, Nancy Mace. Thomas Massey, Republican of Kentucky, reintroduced a bill, H.R. 899, on February 2nd of 2024 to abolish the Department of Education by December 31st, 2026. Oh, why wait so long? I mean, why should it take so long? Just lock the doors, right? What do you care? His bill is one sentence long. And it mirrors legislation he first proposed in 2017 during Donald's first term. The Department of Education was established in 1979 under Jimmy Carter and has long been a target for Republicans because, again, they hate an educated electorate. Reagan campaigned on dismantling it in 1980, and Donald reiterated the call in his 2024 campaign, calling it, quote unquote, bloated and radical bureaucracy. Okay. Yes. Teaching children actual facts. Very radical. Donald has been proposing to dismantle the Department of Education, which could impact red states more than blue ones due to their higher reliance on federal fundings for schools. Yes. That's how it works, guys. Most red states are welfare states in this sense. They take more money from the federal government than they give back, whereas blue states like Massachusetts and New York and California give much, much, much more money into the federal government than they take back, which means that if things get really, really bad, just saying, in 2021 to 2022, red states received an average of 17% of education funding from the federal government compared to 11% in Biden voting states. Mississippi had the highest share at 23%. Also curious how that tuberculosis outbreak is going on down there. On the yesterday, actually, the U.S. military deported migrants to Guantanamo Bay, so it's already starting. This marks the beginning of the surge in such deportations. And this follows Donald's longstanding interest in using the facility for migrants. The U.S. naval base, historically used for detaining individuals linked to the September 11th attacks, is now set to house migrants. And Donald has suggested erroneously that it could hold up to 30,000 people. Amy Fisher of Amnesty USA condemned this move, as should we all, calling it cruel and an attempt to violate human rights in isolation away from legal support. Because that's exactly what it is. We are literally heading towards this situation in which people who committed basically coming into this country without the right papers or without permission is a misdemeanor. But you have a right to due process. Just picking people up, as has been suggested in Mississippi, and just putting them in prison for life, that seems to contradict the basic premise of what this country was, one of the things this country was supposed to be built upon, immigrants. And this is going to lead us back to this one of the darkest periods in American history after Reconstruction, Jim Crow, when Black people were arrested on false, made-up charges like loitering or, I don't know, looking at somebody funny, and then sentenced to work in turpentine farms, a practice called peonage that has been described as people who experienced it as worse than slavery. That's where we're headed. Anyway. Early days. Congressional Republicans blocked a Democratic motion to subpoena Elon Musk regarding his actions with the Department of Governmental Efficiency, which has been freezing funding for federal agencies. Democrats argue Musk's DOGE lacks the legal authority to cut funding or make government decisions without congressional oversight because it does. Let's take a look at this.
Who is this unelected billionaire that he can attempt to dismantle federal agencies, fire people, transfer them, offer them early retirement, and have sweeping changes to agencies without any congressional review, oversight, or concurrence? Therefore, Mr. Chairman, given his prominence and his importance, I move that the committee subpoena Elon Musk to come before it as a witness at the earliest possible moment.
What's he so afraid of? Anyway, Musk has taken drastic steps to reduce government operations, claiming to have Donald's backing, but it doesn't matter. It's still illegal and unconstitutional. Republicans, including Rep. James Comer, defend Musk's actions, arguing that federal agencies waste taxpayer dollars and need scaling back. Yes, that's your fucking job. Critics worry that Musk's inexperienced, they're like embryos, could damage valuable government data, such as NOAA's climate data, following the Project 2025 blueprint that calls for privatizing parts of government agencies. Yes, red states, good luck with your next hurricane when there is no National Oceanographic, I never remember what, atmospheric agency to alert you or to track that hurricane for you. Another day. So I did want to talk to you about something because a lot of people have been mentioning, and I have to be honest, I've been thinking about it a lot as well. Twitter, should we stay? Should we go? And what does it mean in either case? There was an article in the BBC last week, that Donald's return to the White House has prompted further departures from Twitter, from entities like the German football club, FC St. Pauli, BMW UK, because of the increases in hate speech and the right-wing influence, which is obviously encouraged by Twitter's owner. Under Musk, Twitter's anti-Semitic content reportedly doubled between June 22nd and February 2023. Sorry, June 2022 and February 2023. His controversial political posts have also stirred backlash in the UK, and marketing experts note that X is becoming less important for brands unless targeting specific audiences like sports or political communities. Some, like Massachusetts Bay Authority, remain on Twitter due to its real-time communication capabilities, highlighting its ongoing utility despite the controversies. And, that last point is a very good one, right? At its height, at its best, Twitter was a brilliant aggregator of news. It really was. Journalists went there to share information. People went there to become more informed. Sorry, not vodka. Also, it was a really good way to promote your work. Kind of much like TikTok has become, and who knows what's going to happen with TikTok, but Twitter was a place where people could make money by sharing links to their work for people to find. But obviously, there's the other part of Twitter. And this is the problem I'm having. Well, there are two problems. The easy one is this. I have long said that Democrats have to stop ceding territory, even if it's really unpleasant, because we leave and then they just take over everything. Right? I mean, I'm not suggesting it's that simple. With Twitter, it's a much more complex problem. But what good does it do to leave? Like, if you're not monetized, you're not making money for him, you're not making money for yourself. You're still just communicating and getting information. And if you curate your Twitter feed properly and never, ever, ever look at your comments, you can make it work. But then there's the other part of it too. I joined Twitter in 2011. And I had no idea what it was or how to use it. And then after the 2016 election, it became incredibly important to me because my lockdown started after that election. And I mean, I couldn't post on Twitter because I was that made me wildly uncomfortable, but I could see what other people were doing and I could look at the comments and the conversations. And then when a couple weeks before my book came out in July, before anybody knew the book was coming, before pretty much anybody knew I existed, I had 90 Twitter followers. And then by Joe Biden's inauguration, I had like 1 million. And what happened in that meantime was that I found my community. I have some of my closest friends, many of my close friends I met on Twitter in DMs. How do I give that up? Well, the truth is that may not exist anymore anyway, so maybe I should, and maybe it's just sentimentality. And then, of course, I think we all had this experience that, I don't know about you guys, but like Twitter saved me during COVID. So sorry about that thumbs up thing. It's a Mac thing. It's very frustrating. I'm not being flippant about anything. I just talk with my hands too much, I guess. Anyway, so those are that's the quandary, right? That's the conundrum. Can I, in good conscience, stay on Twitter? Can I, in good conscience, leave? I do not have an answer for you yet. I'm still there. Also, like, a lot of us worked really hard to get to establish those communities, right? And anyway, so those are my basic headings. Should we really cede more territory? First of all, there is still, it does still have value as a way to keep us updated real time on emergencies. I mean, I'm sure everybody was on Twitter in the immediate aftermath of that horrific plane crash in DC last week. And again, where else? I know there are other alternatives. However, Twitter was quite something. And I miss it. And I miss it even though I'm still there. Not sure that staying does any good. So let me know what you think. And then let's go to our emotional support moment, which is going to be this. Sorry. All right. Well, the Proud Boys, that fascist Nazi group of damaged white boys. Well, they vandalized a black church in DC. And thanks to that, they were arrested and tried. And a DC judge has awarded Metropolitan African Methodist Episcopal Church control over the Proud Boys name and brand after the far-right group failed to pay a $2.8 million judgment for vandalizing the church in 2020. Proud Boys are banned from selling merchandise. The ruling bars Proud Boy members from selling any merchandise, not just with their names, but also with their symbols, without the church's consent, which I'm pretty sure they're never going to get. It also allows the church to seize profits made from past sales. This is getting fun. The lawsuit stems from the 2020 vandalism when the Proud Boys tore down and burned Black Lives Matters banners at the church following a Trump rally in December 2020, an act that the church described as terroristic intimidation, which it was. Enrico Tarrio's involvement, he was the leader then, and he admitted to participating in the vandalism. He served 5 months in jail before receiving a 22-year sentence for his role in January 6th insurrection. You'll never guess where he is now. I don't know, but he's not in prison because Donald pardoned him. Donald pardoned Tara, as I just said, and all of the other January 6th defendants on his very first day back in office because that's his priority. In response to the ruling giving the church ownership of the Proud Boy name, Tarrio sarcastically suggested renaming the group the, quote, African Methodist Episcopal Boys, unquote, because he's funny. The Proud Boys never responded to the lawsuit or made payments, which is what led to the church's successful motion in December 2024 to seize the group's trademark. So the church can now profit from the Proud Boys brand. Although I have to say, I hope it's not a lot of money because I don't want anybody giving money to the Proud Boys, even if it goes to a good cause. You know what I'm saying? Because it's just, I don't want the Proud Boys getting their name or their trademarks anywhere out there. But at least, I mean, it would not be such a bad thing if they stopped doing anything at all. So that is today's emotional support moment. I found that uplifting, and it shows you that every once in a while, things can work out. You know, sometimes, less and less frequently, but sometimes. Excuse me. All right, let's get to your comments. Let's see. From Lori. He's an SOB, Mary. Yes, he is. Who? All of them. They're all SOBs. Got to be a little bit more specific, Lori. Come on. Can't make it that hard. From Maria. Get off Facebook too. Yeah. But it's hard. It's hard. It's hard. You know what? It's not hard. Stop frequenting places like Amazon and Target. That's not hard. Right? You can find that stuff elsewhere. Twitter community, whatever. I understand that. I'm not saying we shouldn't leave. I'm still up in the air, but you know. Gwen, I do not know how many exclamation points follow this all caps word, impeach, but there are many of them. You know what's cool? I had an idea. I mean, this was not unique to me, but this phrase was going around. ITMFA, right? And it stood for impeach the motherfucker already, and then it stood impeach the motherfucker again. It's back in style, right? Because Democrat today is filing articles of impeachment. From Cheryl. Comment. If Mary wants to come to Canada, she's more than welcome. That's very kind of you. Can you get me a passport? Thank you, Cheryl. All right, now I want to take a couple of minutes to thank all of you people donating, all of you super stickers. Thank you, Jen, so much for that. Much appreciated. Thank you, Stephanie, super sticker. Thank you, Natalie, who says, you're an amazing person, Mary. Just wanted you to know it. Well, that is extraordinarily kind of you, Natalie. And thank you for, I don't know what that currency is, but I can't wait to find out. So thank you for that. From Marjorie, listening. Thank you. First of all, thank you. I forgot that part. Where are my manners? Thank you, Marjorie. Your comment, listening to the horrors, I am distracted by those white vases. Are they ceramic? Okay, now get back to the shit show. Yes. I'm in an undisclosed location and I do not know, but I will find out. Yeah, we're mixing things up here over at Mary Trump Live. All right, from music, thank you, music. God bless all. Can a narcissist get off on having power to kill large numbers of people as he did with COVID? And what model is that beautiful guitar? First of all, yes, yes, sadly. Somebody who is on that extreme end of having, antisocial personality disorder. He's on the extremist end of that spectrum you could possibly be. He's completely capable of that kind of thing. The guitar is a Takamine. It's gorgeous. It is not mine. I have not memorized the model number, but I'll check that out. It's stunning. This thing is stunning. I do not deserve to play this guitar. Really. Thank you, Diana, so much. Thank you, Autistic Ang. Most excellent of you. Thank you, KJ Crafts, who says, keep up the good work, Mary. Hugs. Thank you. We will. We have every intention of doing that. Nothing will stop us. Thank you so much, Fletcher. Another awesome super sticker. Thank you, Sue, for the £5. I need to get it. I'm going to Wales. I'm going to Wales at the end of May. I'm very excited about it. Never been to Wales. Anyway, Sue says, I'm currently listening to your book about Donald. Who are a few of your favorite authors? We don't have enough time, but let's just start. Let's just start with the top 3 or 4. William Faulkner, Toni Morrison, Henry James, Samuel Richardson. That is more than enough to get you started. From Quite Tired, thank you so much. Zooming out, the relentless institutional destruction by D-Boy and Z-Boy. Oh, got it. What is their end goal, in your opinion? Are they Russian citizens in the making? No. No, they're not going anywhere. No, their goal is to do exactly what they're doing right now. With impunity. Forever. Let's not end on that note. Thank you so much, Kimberly. Intersex XXXY mosaic and born with testes and ovaries. That I think that we need to find ways to protect you, is what I think. And I'm very sorry. And I hope you're surrounded by people who love and care about you, as you should be. From Eve, thank you so much. Another great super sticker, as is Stephanie. Stephanie, that's fantastic. Thank you. Thank you, Dodie. Thank you, Kathy. Both of you, super stickers. Very generous of you. From Being Nancy, thank you, Being Nancy. And don't forget to hydrate. Trust me, I hydrate way too much because I have Charlie horses every day, because I'm telling you, that is not vodka, and I'm still getting Charlie horses. Thank you, Jackie and Mariana, 2 great super stickers as well. Thank you, Tam Tam. Thank you, Gina and Cheryl, super stickers. Thank you, Diane. Oh my God, you like Faulkner. No wonder you keep me sane. Wow, are you in a minority of people who would say that? But man, do I appreciate it. I'm sorry. So sorry. All right, guys, that's it. We're done. We went long because whatever. Every day is a year. But we'll be back tomorrow. No, wait, tomorrow, 12 noon Eastern, we have the nerds. And then we're back for Mary Trump Live, 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern. And, maybe I'll have a different background. Who knows? We're just going to keep you guessing. Seriously, thanks so much to all of you who are watching on YouTube, streaming on Twitter, listening to the podcast. We really appreciate that. To all of people commenting, everybody, all the incredible moderators and donator super stickers, obviously, and to my absolutely extraordinary team. Thank you guys so much for everything you do. And I will see you back here tomorrow. We've got lots of other videos dropping. In the meantime, please, everybody, stay safe and be kind.